Hello, everybody. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. This is Karen here, your favorite virtual assistant. I'm actually coming here to discuss another great topic, which is titled "Beyond Translation: The Importance of Cultural Competence in Healthcare." Um, so, before I begin, I want to give you guys a little more breakdown. The conversation is going to be about understanding cultural competence, the barrier of cultural competence, and strategies that we can apply to help with cultural competence. Okay, so cultural competence to me is not just about translation, it's about understanding that as a healthcare provider, right? That we see patients with different cultures, right? Different belief systems, different values, different characteristics, and different behaviors. So when we come across those type of patients, I believe it's really important to us to pay attention to understand. That's the main thing. And I also do believe that it's important to take time to understand that based on what we get from the patient, right? Based on the behaviors, certain behaviors that patient display might come from a cultural stance on the patient end. It doesn't come from a place of disrespect. It comes from a place of a cultural belief or values that the patient have. So the reason why to me cultural competence is important because it creates an environment where communication is there, right? Trust is there, openness is there as well. And it brings a space of satisfaction in the patient safety. Um, so this is why I truly do believe cultural competence is very important. When you deal with patients from different, in my experience, when I have dealt with patients from different cultural backgrounds, I had to learn that only because I perceive things a certain way, it does not make it a reality for the patient, right? And I also had to understand that um, to as far as the unconscious bias, right? That is also a thing that can happen sometimes as healthcare providers. So I think it's important to be open minded. I really do believe it's important to have empathy and compassion, right? And even with communicating and paying attention to facial gestures and paying attention to the behaviors of the patient is very important. So I also want to discuss the consequences when it comes to organization not having cultural incompetence, right? It creates a space where the patient maybe feels like not being able to open to, right, because it's a language barrier. So with a language barrier, a patient might not be able to have an informed decision on their health or the well-being. So I think it's very important to try to find translation or interpreters, or or get interpreter software if you don't have anybody, if you as a provider did not speak a person's language. I think it's important to find ways to relay the message to the patient so they are able to create, or so they are able to have an informed decision in their health. That is a very important thing, because if the patient is not able to create or able to have an informed decision, how will they know what is the best option for them? How will they know what is the best decision based on the information that's being given to them? Right? A little further than that, how are they able to speak to their family members about what's going on if they're not able to inform? If I don't understand, if they don't understand, how are they able to inform their family members of what's going on, so that maybe somebody else could help them make a decision, right? Maybe somebody else could help them understand. So I think that's one of the big issues when it comes to not having cultural competence. Just not being able, the patient not being able to make an informed decision in their wellness, in their health. All right. The second uh, reason is that with the patient not able to understand, it shapes the mindset. It shapes that they attitude. It shapes their behaviors, right? It shapes them being able to be engaging or be able to give feedback. Um, how can somebody provide you feedback or be engaged if they don't get what they're being told? That just doesn't make sense, you know. And then the last reason why uh, cultural incompetence is one of the consequences is patient safety, which means as a patient, right? If I'm not able, if there's no, if the patient, like I said, patient safety also speaks to being able to speak, being able to understand, being able to engage with the provider, being able to say, "Hey, doctor, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me better?" Or, "Hey, nurse," or whoever the patient's seeing. I think that it's very important to take time to provide the patient a help, or even somebody who could interpret what they're saying. I think that's very important. The whole point is to have or provide the patient a way so they can make it a very informed decision, okay, in a health. I think that's the very most important thing because when I came across me, I speak Spanish, and the one thing that I able to help a patient is translate, right? I'm able to translate what I see on paper, be able to inform them of it. So that's a benefit. But if they don't have nobody to translate or for them to understand, how can they make a decision? Right? Even if their daughter's on the phone, I'm able to explain to their family member what is being told to them. So if they don't have that, it creates an environment where the patient don't feel like they're being seen or heard. It creates an environment where the patient feels like I don't want to come here no more because nobody understands. No, I don't understand nobody, and nobody understands me. So I think it's very important to take time to try to find ways to be inclusive, provide inclusivity in the patient's when it comes to patient care. So I want to speak a little bit about the difference between cultural diversity and cultural competence. I found this article by Tarsha Whitaker Calloway, and the article is titled "The Difference Between Cultural Competence and Diversity." And in the article, the way Ms. Calloway explains cultural diversity is existence of variety of cultural and ethnic groups in an organization, but it does not equate to competency in serving those groups. So essentially, what she's saying is that cultural diversity is a variety of people's cultures and ethic, right? So it's a blend of people. It's a blend of cultures. It's a blend of ethnicity in a group, in an organization. But that does not mean because we have cultural diversity in a group, it will be, it will speak to the competence in the same organization. Okay, and then the her definition of cultural competency is when an organization has set of principle, believes in an attitude about cultural differences and experience, right? And apply those principles, believe in attitude to operation as policy. That is her definition of competency. But I have a bigger question. My question is, how can a company promote diversity, right? While upholding competency? That's my bigger question. I get the diversity part because, like for me, I live in New York and I work with diverse people, diverse group of people. I speak to, I work along different people from different races, different background, different belief systems, right? But that's in New York. But outside of the other areas, right? Even as a doctors, let's say, or certain medical professionals, they might not look the way I look, right? They might not be black. They might not be Hispanic or whatever the race that you are. So my question is, how can an organization promote diversity but still upholding competency? And the way I think about it is hiring more people that look like the people that comes there, like the patients, hiring people from different cultures, hiring people from different backgrounds, right? Because it creates a space for learning and understanding. It creates a space where if I'm a worker there or I'm a patient, right? It creates a space where you can ask me questions if you want to get to know more of my culture and where I'm from and my beliefs. So I think one way, one big way, a company or an organization could actually help with upholding competency, right? While having a diverse group of people, while promoting diversity, is to hire people from different backgrounds. I think that makes the difference, not just for the environment, not just for the organization, but also for the people that comes, the patients. Right? Somebody mentioned here representation matter, and I 100% agree to this. I 1,000% agree that representation matters. It really do. Okay, even as before I was a CNA, even as a CNA, right? Because I had an experience, and I'm going to share a little detail before I'm just going to pause for a little bit on the information, but I want to share an experience that I particularly remember. I had a patient that when I came in into the floor, he was screaming, but I didn't understand. Most everybody there didn't speak Spanish. Now I didn't know the patient; he was new, but he was in his room and he was just screaming and like scratching and itching. Well, I say itching because he was scratching, so he was itching, obviously. But when I asked everybody, but why he's screaming? Do anybody know why he's screaming? And everybody can say no. I kept going to him, but nobody. I don't know what he's screaming about. I gave him juice. He don't want that. I give him a snack. He don't want that. I don't understand why he's screaming. So I went to the room to find out what was his problem, right? And I offer the same thing. I said, okay, do you want water? Do you want a snack? Nobody answered. I said, so what exactly is going on? Like, show me. I asked him to show me. Like, show me what's the problem. Show me what's the issue here. Like, show me. I try to point it to him, like like this, so he could show me, because I spoke to him in English and I could tell he didn't understand. So I kept like pointing, so he could show me what it is he was trying to convey. And I don't know. For some reason, I decided to speak to him in Spanish because I always try that. I always go English first, and if I say don't understand, I always try Spanish to see if that makes sense. So I think that was the issue. The issue was the barrier of the language, because the people that was on the floor didn't speak Spanish, and when I came in, I was the only person that spoke Spanish. So he was able to tell me that he's itching, right, but that his stomach hurt. So that I was able to convey that to the nurse. I was able to relieve him. I was able to help him out with whatever itchiness he had. And I was able to find out how long he'd been itching. I was able to find out, um, what exactly is it, the clothes, like what's going on. But he was able to inform me of different things. He was able to inform me this been happening since he started a new medication, and so obviously, and I said, well, all I could do is maybe put some kind of ointment on your skin to help it alleviate some of the dryness, right? And then the nurse would take up the rest from there, because obviously I was a nurse. I can't give him anything, but I could at least help where as far as I could take him, which is we just maybe give him some, oil him up, put some hydration on his skin, and see how it's up, which he helped. And I think that sometimes not being able to convey, or a patient not able to express their dissatisfaction and not able to express their concerns, it creates an area of frustration. It really does. It really does create a space of frustration. So this is why I really do believe, like the person here stated, representation definitely matters when it comes to not just in healthcare, but I think all aspect. When I speak, but especially in healthcare, because we're dealing with people's lives, we're dealing with people, you know, in helping and making somebody better. So I think, I just truly, honestly believe that cultural competency is essential. in healthcare. It is essential. But I'll leave that there. I ain't gonna go too much. All right. So the two common barriers that I find that I have from my expertise, and the first one is language barrier. Okay. So language barrier is one of the very first barriers when it comes to cultural competency. Not being able to communicate, you don't understand the doctor because the doctor does not speak Spanish or whatever language whatever language you speak, or you're not the patient not able to convey. Oh, hi, Christian. Hi, thank you. Or that patient not able to convey what it is their concerns are. The second common barrier that I find is sometimes is cultural stereotypes, right? Especially coming from the healthcare people, right? And that goes along with your own unconscious bias because people have their own cultural stereotypes on people based on what they heard or what they seen on television or social media. So they make that to be the reality, right? Just like I don't know if you guys remember when I was younger, not anymore. When I was younger, in the commercials, they always play kids, right, in Africa with like bugs and fly all over them. Do you think that played unconscious bias and the cultural stereotype on people? It really did. And to be honest, it did on me as well because I didn't know. I never been to Africa, so I don't know what was there. You know, so based on what we see on TV and based on what we see on social media, sometimes it could create cultural stereotypes. But this is why I think it's important to have conversations with people. This is why I think it's important to talk, to learn, to listen, to ask questions. That's what that does. This is why I think it's very important to take your time to get to know, to just to create a space of understanding. So the barriers can lead to miscommunication. It can lead to mistrust, and it can lead to a poor health outcome for the patient. Right. So if the person stands right, how trust you to tell anything, right, and that goes along with communication. If they're not able to talk and explain to you what's going on, that how can they communicate effectively to you, right? This is why and then I also want to say I think that one of the misunderstandings I've seen, to be honest, well, I say three misunderstandings that I have seen. One of them is eye contact, right? Because we in America here, we look at people in the eye when we talk to them. But some people in cultures looking in the eyes are from a disrespect. So they will not look at you in their eyes. Right. Another thing would be a handshake. Maybe to some cultures, a woman touching a man might not be within their culture, or or a man looking at a woman face in the eye might be a cultural. So I think that understanding and being open. This is where the open mind thing comes in. Only because everything is not only because you perceive something as disrespect, it does not mean it's disrespect. It could be a very much a cultural thing. I had patients where they didn't want to speak to a woman; they wanted to speak to a guy. Some pieces based on culture. Some culture does not allow a female doctor to see a man or speak to him, or even speak to the friend that's woman. That's all cultural belief and cultural values. So this is why respecting people comes in and not taking things personal. Yeah. Okay, Amber, you get a good question. I'm gonna get to you. I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna be real brief. Why is it okay? So this is why I think cultural bias is could kill the patient experience, right? Because like I said it before, when it comes to cultural stereotypes, you have your own cultural bias. Then you have your own ideas, right? And your ideas that you think is true, it affects your behavior. It affects the way you talk to people, and it affects the way you service a patient. So this is why I think it's important to put our own check ourselves at the door, right? I think it's important to not make assumptions. That's one thing I have learned. Don't make assumption, right? When it comes to cultural differences, right? Cultural understanding of a patient. Cultural, it's all about you being a person, being willing and open to understand and to learn. So I want to share practical strategies that a healthcare provider can actually do to help with cultural competency. The first one I say, I think I mentioned it, is learning about different cultures from your coworkers or even from a patient. Ask questions. Get to understand. Hey, how is this you from? What did they, how? Ask questions to understand whether it's from your coworker or from a patient if you have that kind of relationship with a patient, right? Take time to learn. Take time to ask questions. Take time to assess. Take time to just open your mind, right? Outside of TV, there's nothing better getting the real information from the real people. I mean, just my personal opinion. The next one I say using interpreters effectively. If you have a person in your, if you have a front desk person, or if you have, or even hiring people that are from different variety of languages, right? Or even hiring a software or a company that could do an interpretation for you. That's another way of helping the patient too, and adding to the cultural competency, right? And I also say the last one I say engaging in cultural humility. And what I mean by cultural humility is a provider, right? Practicing openness, right? Practicing open-minded, practicing self-awareness, and leaving the ego and the pride at the door, right? Coming from a place of the patient's point of view, not coming from the space of I'm the doctor, I know better. I think that that's not all doctors across the board, but I have worked with physicians who have that mentality. I'm the doctor, I know better. And I think when we come from the space of listening to the patient and trying to understand the patient and giving the patient the space to speak on the things that bother them, giving the patient to ask questions, right? I think it would lead to a more healthy experience and also lead to a more well-rounded experience as a within the healthcare system. Because I've been working in healthcare for 10 years and I can tell you stories. I have great experience and I also have very negative experience on both ends with patients and with healthcare providers. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I had both. But over all of that, one thing that I really enjoy working with patients is actually taking the time to get to know them better, right? Taking the time to listen to understand, right? Taking the time to be compassionate to them. Because one thing I had come to learn is that I understand sometimes patients be frustrated and be mad and all of that, but I also understand sometimes it's not based on you. Sometimes it's based on what they're going through at the moment. So that's one thing I think like healthcare providers, it's good to I think it's a good thing is to allow ourselves to take us I for me, right? From I meaning you as a person, right? And not take things so personal. Now I don't believe in disrespect. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't believe in disrespect at all. I'm all about helping, going with passing beyond to help a patient. But I don't believe in being disrespected in the process of helping someone or trying to help someone. So I think that cultural competency is a great thing to have. It's an essential thing to have. I think that one of the biggest things that a company could have is create culture. Have people from different cultures, celebrate people from different cultures. Maybe even set a time for people to learn from each other. Different foods and things like that. Based on the anniversary, how every depends on the country, they have like a Independence Day, maybe something like that, so people could get to understand, or maybe do a newsletter or something. That's other ways that we could celebrate cultural competency as well. So let's see what the comments are saying, guys. Not being able to not being able to communicate clearly with your provider can lead to more health problems. I 100% agree. It really does. It really does. Hi, Christian. We have to be able to communicate with patients if we want to serve them. I hands down, I agree with that one too. Communication is a must. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's nothing else to say. I think communication as a board is a must, especially when it comes to healthcare, because it gives the space to no patient convey what it is they want or what they request, an understanding. But in the healthcare provider too, would be active listening to see what you pick up. Because sometimes patients will tell you things, but they won't tell you the whole story, right? It also depends on who they're talking to. Because sometimes I have found myself, patients sometimes have easier talking to the front desk person than it is talking to the doctor. To some patients, doctors are intimidating, but not the front desk person. Somebody, Amber, hi Amber. It says, I think it goes back to the education piece, whether a nurse, CNA, physician, or PA. If we aren't, let me put it up here. Sorry. If we aren't, if we aren't teaching valuable communication skill, what are they going into patient care? That's a good question. I agree, Amber. I 100 agree with you. 100% agree with you on that. But I think there's a time. I think I find that a lot of the time the medical professional, whoever that person is, they get beside themselves, right? They have the assumption because I am the medical professional, I know better, right? And they don't create the space and the open mindedness to allow patients to express their piece, right? To express their concerns, to express their wants, to express their needs, right? And that's where the ego part and the pride thing comes in. And I think that if we could be able to leave the pride and the ego at the door, I really believe that it creates a space for open communication for us a provider to understand and try to understand the patient as best as you can. So I agree, communication, and I feel like I agree with what you just stated. um I think as somebody who's in a hierarchy field, you have to be able to show compassion, because to be able to treat somebody at the lowest point, whether it's in a hospital setting or skill setting or even in an office outpatient setting, that's a person's lowest point, and that's the time to show some kind of empathy and compassion, right? And not judge the person based on what your beliefs are, regardless of what the patient conditions are, right? But I'll leave it there for now. Too many providers believe that a degree is all they need to provide care. Understanding cultural competency is essential. Yes, I agree. It's more than I agree, Christian. It's more than just a degree. You know, the lack of compassion and empathy leads to an increase of complaints with patients. Yeah, definitely do. Because the patient don't feel seen and heard or understood. Like, what do you expect from somebody? You know. So Amber said, Christian, my issue with that speak to exactly what Karen is talking about. I was taught in nursing school, quote from the books, Chinese patients won't mind if you wait on another patient because they are very patient. Japanese patient won't look you into the eyes because they are humble people. Black people are less likely to complain of pain. All of those are tropes. Yep. And I was floored to read those. That was being taught. So messed up, my instructors didn't even get what I was talking about when I mentioned it. So frustrating. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Amber, you said so much here, which is, and I'm gonna put it up here. I should have put it up here, but this is so true. This is why nonverbal communication is important. You have to be detail orientated when it comes to whether you're a nurse or a medical professional. Period. Because if a person doesn't tell you something in words, but if you look at their facial expression, if you pay attention to their cues or their body language, or you pay attention to so much, you will get so much from a person. Amber, you hit it right in the nail. People don't always speak because of their own cultural background, but they can you could definitely get a lot for someone by paying attention to them. I agree. Yes, kindly you got the door. Totally agree, Amber. That's appalling. Yes, this is the truth, guys. Thank you so much for your comments and for watching. I appreciate Amber, Christian, and whoever else is out there watching and watch the replay. We can watch the replay, mark replay on this, so I could know you're watching it. And if you are someone who is looking for virtual assistants, just leave me a comment, leave me a message, or even about this topic. If you like this topic and something else you want to add, um, you know, just write it in the comments. If you have any topic that you want to discuss, please send me a message. If you want to be a guest on my Wednesday lives or for medical, anything healthcare related, right? Anything healthcare related, if you want to, we could find a way to incorporate it with mental health, anything within the wellness space and health space. And this is you. Send me a message. We could collaborate together. We could find a topic that we could both talk about and highlight you as a person. I love to have guests in here and talk to me. As much as I like talking, guys, I love to talk to people. I don't know if you get that from me, but I do. So thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody so, so much. And everybody have a wonderful Wednesday night. And y'all be safe out there, okay? But take care, guys. Thank you so much.